I'm here with Pamela Gold, who is a fitness entrepreneur, fitness guru, author, and business operator coming from New York City, which is one of the most hardly hit. That you're our first New York guest, by the way. We have Oz Garcia later on today. You're coming from ground zero, the new ground zero. And we're hoping to get your most powerful ideas and perspectives. What's going on from your point of view at the moment?
You know, it's interesting because the reality of the experience of this is extremely segmented in terms of if you're someone who's sick, if you're someone who's on the front lines as a medical worker or an essential worker in a different industry, you know, the experience is very, very different. I am very, very grateful that my family has not been sick and that we have everything that we need. And so our personal experience, once we got through the first week of closing down my business, and my husband is an entrepreneur as well in the music industry, so he had to deal with and continues to deal with a lot of impact on the business side because of this. But that's work, right? Once we got through that kind of initial phase of it, it really has felt like a never-ending weekend for us because my husband and I are always working from home. We never take time off. There is no weekend when we're not working. Mm-hmm. So even when we're home with our children, we're still working in the background and balancing everything and balancing self-care and balancing all of the things in the same way that we are now. So for our family, it really has felt like a never-ending weekend, which in some ways has been really, really nice. Mm-hmm. And so our personal experience of this has been a lot of grace, a lot of grace. And then I've pivoted in terms of where I'm focusing. Instead of running Hacked, I'm still caring for my Hacked community, but I've expanded my circle of care. My main kind of life mantra is, how can I be of service? Mm-hmm. And so it's changed in the last 4 weeks, how I can show up and be of service. And so I'm doing different things, reaching out to my friends who are sick and helping friends who are on the front lines, you know, medical care workers, doctors. I have a lot of friends who are doctors. So it's just shifted, but it's been strange.
So I heard one word there which you emphasized, which was grace. Can you expand on that a little bit? What is grace for you?
Sure. So grace for me is staying present and staying rooted in gratitude. Staying really in an authentic flow of my own heart, like really stay in my heart. What sparks joy? What do I love? What is that feeling of love? And where does that feeling of love drive me? And then kind of the highest state of clarity and wisdom and being able to kind of feel clear about what I know to be true in this period of knowing clearly nothing, mm-hmm. right? What do I know to be true? How can I use what I know to be effective and make positive action, take a positive action, but do it all from a place of love. Okay. And so there's a flow in that has been the experience here.
And so how would you advise someone like our audience to access that state of grace? You mentioned gratitude. Is that that's obviously one of the pillars? What else? How would we approach accessing grace right now?
Sure. So practice is the key to anything in life. And another one of my kind of life mantras has been, you practice when it's easy. So when it's hard, it's easier to do it without that heaviness, right? And so everything is about practice. In some ways now it's harder to practice certain things, but in other ways, you may find that some people have more space to practice certain things. So when I say certain things, meditation is my number one go-to fitness practice. I've said it before, even if there's a day when I can't make it to the gym, and there's a conversation around that, but meditation is the first and foremost thing that I practice every day. Mm-hmm. And the practice of meditation is a very, very wide spectrum. You can literally do 1 minute meditations. You can do meditations where you're just focused on your breath as you go about the conversation, as you go about the activity, washing the dishes, walking the dog. Yes, you can, but that's the thing. And we actually had a great breath conversation. One of my mentors is Dan Brule, and we were talking about having kind of one foot on your breath and one foot on whatever else you're doing, to start to realize that you can have this kind of, awareness that is more broad. But that practice of meditation and mindfulness, because mindfulness to me speaks to awareness. You are aware of what you're paying attention to. You may have heard the adage, you're only paying attention when you're paying attention to your attention. It's a mouthful and it kind of makes you chuckle. And it's true. If you're not paying attention to your attention, you're not aware. And where your attention goes, energy flows. So that first step is being aware of what you're paying attention to. So being aware of whether you're paying attention to your breath or not as you go about your day, that's a mindfulness practice. When I say meditation, meditation to me starts to speak about going deeper. How much deeper can we take our awareness? Because we have this three-dimensional space around us that is very loud and very demanding, and that's what we focus on to survive. There's a deeper level of awareness that we can tap into that will help us tap into that flow of energy that is the thing that helps kind of create the flow of grace. And so the more we meditate, the more we start to kind of rewire our brain to be able to sense that more subtle essence of energy, the subtle vibration. And that, to me, if you can feel that flow of a river that is always flowing, even when the external circumstances change greatly, like they have over the last month, you can still tap into what is this eternal life force. That, to me, is grace.
Okay, so let's assume, for example, that most of our audience are familiar with the importance of meditation, and hopefully they are enhancing their practice during these times.
Yeah.
For the people who haven't yet bit the bullet, taken the plunge and started, what would be, and who those would be the people who we can impact the most powerfully. What would be your 1, 2, 3 steps for them to start, from today, from tomorrow?
Sure. So the first is knowing that there's no such thing as a bad or wrong meditation. That's a misnomer. That's the brain judging. So just be aware of that, because I don't know anyone who started meditation that didn't feel like they were doing it wrong, right? Or that they weren't doing it well. Because we're all overachievers watching this. We're all focused on being our best. And so our brain is going to do that. So first, just know there's no such thing as a bad meditation or doing it wrong. Literally. So that's the first step. And then start small. Start with just a bite-size meditation. Like literally you can use your 5 fingers and either close your eyes or keep them open. And with your breath, you can silently say, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. And it's the exhale that you talk. And so you'll exhale for 5. Peace begins with me. Inhale. Peace begins with me. And you can just do that 5 times. And then notice how you feel. The noticing how you feel after the meditation practice is a critical piece, because it reinforces that was actually something. Something happened. I do feel different now than I felt before I did it. And that noticing is actually kind of rewiring the brain to validate the pathway and get you to do it again. So 1, you can't do it wrong. Start really small, something really simple, like a 5-finger peace begins with me meditation. And then notice afterwards. And then writing is the next. Yeah.
Writing? Go ahead with that.
So if you keep a journal of how you feel, of any ahas, did you see light? Did you experience something differently? Later in the day when you meditated, did you suddenly find the power, the peace to handle your kids in a different way than you did before? Like that was weird. Like when I started meditating, that kind of stuff is what started to happen. Like there was the dynamic with my husband that was very similar to how it always was. I started to get angry just like I always do. But for some reason, once I started meditating, I will never forget this day, because we were in the car. It was like a typical thing. And I was like, I'm aware that I'm getting angry. Whereas I used to just fire off, right, at him, poor guy. Now I'm like, I'm aware. That's weird. I'm like, and you connect the dots, that it's because of meditation that you're now experiencing what feels like a superpower. So writing that stuff down, again, the act of actually writing seals it as well.
Very nice. Okay, so what I just heard from you was a particular practice, which is I would consider, or call focus meditation, where you put your mind on one kind of semi mantra that helps. That's kind of like the easiest step to meditation.
As a starting,
yeah. Versus
and
mindfulness,
starting small.
where you're just watching what's going on in your mind, and then kind of it's a little bit more difficult. So. And that's really interesting. And I, like I also see it, and I'd like you to speak to this because your core expertise is a lot around physical fitness. How do you see the interplay between the mental exercise of meditation, that concentration, versus physical exercise?
Sure. So I think that most people, once you start going down the rabbit hole of self-optimization, physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, heart fitness, whatever, energetic fitness, however you want to call it, I think it's pretty clear pretty quickly that it's all connected, and you absolutely cannot disconnect your physical fitness, your physical health first, and the difference between health and fitness, I think, is another important distinguishment to make at some point. But we cannot separate out what we can accomplish physically, what we can accomplish mentally, and what we can accomplish with our heart, with our energy. And when I say heart or inner strength, I'm talking about our capacity to stay at a place of high energy, where we can feel joy, we can feel love, we can feel peace, and be that regardless of the external challenge, right? So just like if we're at the gym and it's like, all right, I'm going to climb up that freaking rope. No matter how hard it is, I'm going to get up that rope, right? And so I have to have the physical strength, the capacity to do that work. Mm-hmm. Same thing. At some point you realize, well, that's hard, and I'm going to have to keep practicing to do it. So the mind is integral. You have to keep a positive attitude. You have to believe it's possible in the first place before you'll even attempt it, right? So staying positive, noticing when you've got that sneaky fixed mindset, I can't. Oh man, that's being aware every time you throw that in there. I can't, and flip it like I can, and I'm going to have to practice and whatever. And so then you get into the heart. Oh, go ahead.
Could I jump in there? Because one thing that
Please.
I've heard from many of my friends and loved ones, etc., is that no, I've tried meditating, I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, and that's why. Yeah. So that's such a common thing. That was me, Alex. Yeah. I literally, just like some people swim for fitness, I do not like swimming. And so I literally thought meditation may be great for some people, just like swimming is great for some people. Mm-hmm. Meditation's not for me because I tried it. I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I'm a go, fast type A. I've got stuff to do. I only have a certain amount of time. Sitting still, being still is the antithesis of how I'm of service, the antithesis of how I can actually be great. Right? And so I had all that. And so I can speak to it. And so that's why I say start small. It's like if you've never, this is a stupid example, like if you've never eaten before and you go and you have these huge meals, like I can't eat all that, right? It's a dumb example. I don't know why that popped into my head. And, whenever we think we take on a really big challenge, it's like, oh, I can't do that. Fitness. I say climb up that wall and you've never even made it up, a fourth of the way, that may be too big of a challenge at first. So starting small, knowing there's no such thing as a failed meditation. People think they can't do it because they think the goal is to get that monkey mind to shut the heck up. That is a wonderful side effect after a period of time, and everybody's different. How quiet your mind eventually gets, how long it takes, everyone's different. The goal is not to get that to be quiet. The goal is to notice even the slightest shift in your clarity, in your groundedness, in your awareness, in your peace, in your power, in your love, in your joy. Just the slightest shift. So people think they can't do it because they think the goal is to get your brain to shut up. That's not the goal. The goal is just to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. That's why the fingers are a really great, easy starter point, because they physically, as you tap them, bring you back to attention. Because the other thing that was really helpful when I first really started to learn to meditate, knowing that it's a 3-step process. The first step is withdrawal of your senses. So you're no longer paying attention to, generally speaking, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, unless it's part of the meditation. But that withdrawal is the first step. The second step is focused concentration, that you have to effort to keep your concentration focused. It takes effort. And at first it took a lot of effort. Like, again, I was the people who didn't think they could do it. This did not come easily for me at all. I mean, I'm like the list, my kids, I mean, it's just a lot. But I knew, because I was taught from that first week in yoga school, that the third step is effortless concentration. And I was like, okay. And so as I was efforting to stay on the mantra or stay on my breath or stay on the light that I was visualizing, stay on my fingers, whatever it is, whatever we're focused on, eventually once you graduate from like the 5-finger, you'll sit for a minute and maybe visualize light or just concentrate on your breath or pick something inward eventually. That's kind of the path, because you want to go in and you want to go deep eventually. But knowing at some point you're going to be able to do it without effort. And that feeling of surrender, that feeling of relaxation is when it gets really good. And you want to just keep kind of finding the sweet spot, like learning to swim. When you learn to swim, at first, little kids are like trying to hold onto the water and they're freaking out. Eventually they realize they can kind of like float and kind of go with it in between each, and that's the secret sauce. When you start to float, when you start to be able to let go, when you start to practice surrender energetically, things open up. The other great analogy is when you're untying a knot. I'm sure you, like anyone listening, has had a chain or something that was really in a tight knot. You cannot untie the knot by pulling on it harder. It's almost like magic. When you start to relax and soften, the knot will just untie itself. That's how our inner world is. The outer world is not like that. The outer world, the harder you work, the more results you get. In the gym, the harder you work, the more results you get. When it comes to meditation, when it comes to our inner world, when we talk about relaxation, when we talk about finding grace, finding peace, finding inspiration, finding creativity, that's about letting go. That's about surrendering. And we have to practice that, because most of us, that is not how we got this far.
Okay, so I mean, like, we've kind of kidnapped the conversation to be all about.
That always happens with me. That always happens with me, Alex.
I stand by it. I think it's so important because, like what I'm really trying to, get out of this is something which, I've been touching on in the other interviews about, creating some time for meditation. I haven't dove deep into it. So I appreciate you going a little bit deeper on it with me.
I'm your huckleberry.
I'm going to take you so you've given like some nice, very practical steps, like a little bit of mindset on you can't have a failed practice, and then a couple of techniques. Focus on the breath for just a minute. Take the first step. Now, I have another question for you, and you being the ex-skeptic, or like I can't do it. I'm not a meditator.
Type A, yeah.
What would you say to the people who have that kind of attitude and don't think that it's important? Like, what can you take us to the why? Why should someone meditate? What is the benefit? What do you actually get out of it?
Yeah. So let me use another analogy, right? Most of us as humans, we have this amazing brain, and we've been in our head, and using our head and really relying on our intellectual power to figure things out and to think it through and to plan and to troubleshoot and to make sure that we use our highest capacity. At the end, we want to stay safe. We want to be successful. We want to achieve greatness, right? We want to live our best life, and we're using our head to do that. Now, I think we all know, especially in times like this, when suddenly all of our past patterning, like everything that's happened so far, we find ourselves now in a new situation where this is all uncharted territory. I mean, we're all visionaries now. Like we're all on the front lines of something brand new, and none of us know what's going to happen. And actually, the old patterns that our brain is using to try to create kind of what this next best step is and what's going to happen so we know what to do. So that's all what our brain is doing. Our brain is kind of very, very basic from a tool perspective, where it has all of this old information and it's accessing it to predict what's going to happen next, right? And we have all this wisdom, and we listen to really smart people like us that are on here and sharing wisdom, so we can have as much information as possible, so we can then have some forward sight to know what's going to happen and do it, okay? So that's our head, and it's awesome. I love our head. I'm not saying abandon using your head. Mm-hmm. The thing that I've discovered through meditation is that our head, first of all, is extremely buggy, right? Because it has all of these old patterns and it keeps looping through them. Even in the present moment when that's not now. You know, we all have examples where we get triggered. Someone says something to us and without realizing it, all of a sudden we go into fight or flight and it takes us back. And we're treating someone in the present moment like an old partner or like our parent, and we're actually dysfunctional in that moment. We're not present, and we're mishandling the situation, right? Mm-hmm. It's because our head has blinders, mm-hmm. and the blinders are our past experience. Okay, mm-hmm. So that's like up here, and the analogy is that it's kind of like a cut off kind of reservoir of water. Now, our heart and our gut. And I'm pointing to my gut and I'm pointing to my heart right now. Mm-hmm. We want to integrate our heart, and I'm not talking about our emotional heart, and our gut. And we can go right to the gut. We can skip the heart because it's a little warm and fuzzy. And the gut, we talk a lot about gut health. We talk a lot about the science now showing the number of neuroprocessors that we have, neurotransmitters that we have in our gut, how our nervous system is just as much in our gut as it is in our head, right? And so how do we get out of just being stuck in our head? And I'm literally like choking. And the analogy is kind of like a choked reservoir. We have access, and then we have access in our gut. How do we start to integrate the knowing that our gut has, the knowing that our heart has, with the capacity of knowing that our head has? And what I'll say to you is that our head is actually the least effective data processor. It's a data process, least effective tool that we have for knowing. Mm-hmm. Because the wiser I get, the more I know I can't know. The more I know that the head is perceiving things in a very rudimentary way, and it's missing, and we can talk about science, mind sight, David Siegel, all that fun stuff, but I'll keep it as layman as possible. Makes me sound better anyway. We know that our head is only able to capture a minuscule amount of information. Our gut and our heart are actually much more sensitive pieces of receptory kind of information that we have, right? And so when we meditate, we retrain our brain to get out of the old loops and to start to access some other sources of information. And those sources of information are much, much, much more accurate than just thinking all the time. Because when we're thinking, we're not in the present moment. We're thinking about something that's in the past or something that we're projecting in the future, but we have no freaking idea what's really going to happen in the future. Mm-hmm. So by meditating, we're able to stay more in the present, integrate our present knowing that's in the gut, the present knowing that's in the heart, and stay integrated with the brain so we can keep using the brain to nimbly respond. And we don't get stuck acting in the present moment as if it's the old present or as if it's a future that hasn't happened. High anxiety, high worry, high fear, the dysfunction that so many of my loved ones are coming to talk to me about now, it's that. And so to me, that's fitness, that's mental fitness, and that's spiritual fitness. Because if we get stuck worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, or get stuck processing something like something that happened forever ago that actually has no relevance now. Really, I promise you, any stuff that your parents did that kept you unsafe, that has nothing to do with the present situation. We all need to be present now because we're facing a whole new set of opportunities, challenges and opportunities, same thing, right? And so we want to be present, want to be processing the present information in real time. Things are changing so quickly. Meditation gives us that channel. It starts to open back up what we had when we were kids, to be in the present moment, connect with our heart, connect with our gut.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing what I believe to be one of the most powerful techniques and things to be practicing right now. I know your core body of work is more around physical fitness, minimum effective dose, etc. If you wanted to, if we were to agree that meditation, the meditation practice is one of the most important things someone could be doing right now, and building that into their lives as item one. As a parting word, what would you say would be the second most important thing, either in terms of physical or career? What would you say is also important as a kind of like wrap up?
Yeah, so I would just go right to a breath practice, because when we're breathing, we are going to be tapped in as well. And so if we're going to talk something practical, like a career, like right now, so many of us have had to pivot. My gym is closed, so I'm pivoting, right? So many of us have to be, again, in the present moment, and we have to be brave, and we have to be insightful. We have to be creative. And so doing a breath practice, similar to meditation and mindfulness, but different. It's different.
Yep.
Another path.
Yep.
Try that, maybe, right? That is the next thing that I would say.
Okay. So what we'll do is we will leave some links to your materials. If you can share, maybe we'll put a link to some breath practices, breath work.
Well, if you go to PamelaGold.com, before I had hacked, this is more of what I was doing.
Okay.
So there's meditations on there. My book is on there. There's practices, a lot of free stuff on there.
Beautiful. Okay. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your contribution. It's been amazing. Looking forward to the next episode, and have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.